If you're curious enough, something comes at you and you look at it from a love perspective and not a fear perspective, they'll be in a surprise, we'll be in a surprise.
Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high-performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. On this episode, we welcome Tim Cakir, the founder and CEO of AI Operator and a committed student of growth. Tim acknowledges the internal battle of the love and fear that comes with growth, but embraces an experimental and practice-like approach to going down rabbit holes that ready you to ask the right questions and make clear decisions. Hey guys, as we get started here with the episode, I want to just take 1 minute of your time to make a request for you to subscribe and rate the show. For our show to be easily discovered by other potential listeners, we need our current listeners, that's you, to take the time to not only subscribe, but to also rate the show. Whether you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, whatever platform of choice, there are typically ways to be rating the show. So go ahead and click something like that 5th star and be sure to take that additional time to leave a comment or two about why it is you enjoy listening to the Growth Ready podcast. Your efforts on this will allow our show to be more discoverable, which means we're going to find more listeners and continue to have that significant impact on the community of human performance and personal development that I know you are all benefiting from by being listeners to this show. Please go ahead, take the time, subscribe, rate the show today. Hey, and while you're at it, why don't you share it with a few people as well? I appreciate you guys. Let's get to the interview. Hello there, and welcome back into the most recent installment of the Growth Ready podcast. I am delighted today to be welcoming in our guest from Turkey. We get to cross off yet another country on the global podcast that is Growth Ready, and I'm excited to be welcoming in Tim Cakir to the show today. And Tim, before we go any further, I have to ask you what I ask every single guest that joins the show, and that is, what does it mean to you to be growth ready?
I think in this day and age, to be growth ready means that you're ready for perma change, because it's changing all the time, especially with this AI era. So you never know what's going to come out on Monday morning, right? So so you want to be growth ready. You just got to be super curious, be ready to learn anything new, any technology, any new feature, any new agentic thing, whatever OpenAI or Anthropic somebody's going to throw at us on a Monday morning, I think that right now, at the end of 2025, for me, growth ready means just being ready. Show up ready every morning.
Yeah, and I love it because we're literally talking on a Monday as we record this. And so it's just like,
yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Monday morning rolls around. You never know what's awaiting you sometimes in that email, what might be coming your way courtesy of anything, whether it be tech, whether it be some sort of new feature, whether it be just a human being being a human being and giving you problems, right? You never know. But I like the way you frame it as permanent change, not just change, but permanent change, because sometimes it's in the permanence that we get most uncomfortable, and that is we're going to learn as we talk through this. You come from the space of AI. It's easily the most talked about permanent change in this world today. So talk to me a little bit about the difference between maybe something that is changing versus wrapping our heads around something that is a permanent change.
Yeah, I think you said wrapping our heads around, right? I think with the perma changes that we never have the time to wrap around our head on anything. Like it's, something new comes in, and then the week after there's a whole new AI browser thing that starts. And the week after we're going to have, this device potentially in our office that is going to take actions for us, going to go do that. So I think that, in this AI age, I believe perma change for me means that we're I think I was telling this to my wife because she's English. We live in Turkey. She haven't driven in many years, in 11 or 12 years. And last time she was driving was on the other side, right, on the right side, and now she's on the left side. And I think that she was like, "Oh, I get it. It's expect the unexpected." Right, because Turkey, the driving is really bad as well, especially where we are. So it was expect the unexpected. So I think that with perma change is like making sure that you expect the unexpected, that anything can happen. You said it. The humans are humans, and we've been dealing with humans for many years. Humans are very complex, but we're starting to get to know them a little bit more. But this whole new AI, agents, robots, whatever is going to bring. Even the research labs like OpenAI, they're still discovering, still a black box. So this is why I think they'll be in a surprise, we'll be in a surprise. So that's what I mean by perma change. It's been ready on that morning. And I think that I always bring it down. I've said it already, but it's curiosity, right? If you're curious enough, something comes at you and you look at it from a love perspective and not a fear perspective. We have this love, not fear concept. And if you look from a love perspective, you're like, oh, okay, that's great. Something new. Let me try that out. Let me learn this. So let me understand it. But if you go from like, oh shit, there's something new again, right? You're already losing, so that's what I mean.
Okay, we're gonna unpack the love versus fear thing in a little bit. I love how you've presented that, because curiosity is something that comes up unsurprisingly a good bit on the show, and it is something that is foundational in a lot of the work I do, but at the same time everyone has their own personal spin on it, so we're going to get to that in a moment. But the expecting of the unexpected, and I love how you're able to tie it into just something as familiar as simply your wife's ability to find comfort in driving on the other side of the road. Having married an American, I'm the Brit, but having married an American, whenever we come to England, there is no world where my wife will ever get behind the wheel. Like, that is not happening while we're in the UK. I will be doing all the driving while we're in the UK. But the fact is that there's something about this expecting of the unexpected that people don't do very well. So how have you, Tim, found ways to do it effectively, let's say, in this era of high and rapid change?
I'm not sure it's effectively, but I do it somehow. I wouldn't say it's very effective or not. I don't know yet. Like, that's something to measure, I think, later. And I don't think we'll have time to measure if it was effective or not. But about how I do it is I do spend the extra time on learning whatever comes out. And I think that, it could be in voice AI, so anything new in voice, text to voice, voice to text, or things like that, or it'll be image models, it'll be video models, and anything that just comes out. It's like, oh, okay, shit, I need to make some extra time, right? And I need to make some extra time to test it out, to try it out. And I guess I caught myself the other day, and it's like, watching too many YouTube videos about the thing, about whatever came out. And lately was Claude Skills from Anthropic. Claude, which is the competitor of ChatGPT, had this new feature, and it's a really incredible feature. And I kept watching YouTube video, and I have a YouTube channel and I make YouTube videos, but I just kept watching it, and I remembered I was like, Tim, you don't consume, you create. Right. And I was like, oh, okay, shit. I just switched my mind, again. And I was like, all right, it's time to create something with it and fail with it and have potentially an awful time like failing. But that, I think, no pain, no gain. Right. That is exactly what we should get comfortable. And that's how I got comfortable lately. And I guess that's how I'm growing my business. And everybody comes to me because of that, because it's like, I will go down that rabbit hole. I'll get lost completely in there. Somehow, I'll find myself, or somebody else will hopefully come and pull me out from that rabbit hole. And then it'll be like, oh, okay, now I understand that area. And do we need that area? Do we don't need that area? Is that a good area? Is this something that I should spend more time, invest more time? Should I put my team on that? Should I tell my clients about it? Should I not tell my clients about it? I guess that's I think, going back to the rabbit hole, one of my clients, actually his name was Steve as well, Steven, and we call him Steve, and he said, in a testimonial, he said, if you want someone to go down a rabbit hole, it's going to be Tim. Just that whatever that comes out, he'll go down that rabbit hole, and then he'll come and translate to us, whatever that was. So that's it, and it's like, I think going back to that example of like, expecting the unexpected is exactly that. It's being ready for, visually, hearing, taste, even maybe at some point, like being ready for anything new, and, surprising yourself and seeing every surprise as a positive somehow, right? Looking at the fuller side of the glass. And yes, there's a lot of problems in AI that we're going to have as humans. We're going to have a lot of problems. Yes, I know that. But there's so many upsides. The upside is huge that, I always look at the positive side of it.
Yep. And already going back to this idea of the love versus the fear with this notion of the positive surprise, and how can we see the potential versus the cause for concern. And again, definitely going to get to that. But you just said something here that is so important for us to touch on, which is this idea, because I talked about it online just the other day, and I got a lot of engagement from people that were very much in agreement, because we're all guilty of this idea of, hey, you interrupted yourself. You said, Tim, don't consume, go create. So you've consumed enough, and it's such an important facet of the growth experience, is for us to actually acknowledge when enough is in fact enough, because we can just paralyze all action by this constant desire and need for us to keep consuming, especially, and I say this with a ton of irony, because you're someone who is helping people better understand if they were to consume your information. Here I am producing a podcast that, hey, you could spend the next month listening to the 300 plus episodes that we've put out there and consume. But I'm telling you right now, like, at a certain point, consume what you need to that point, and then go through a course of action before you then revisit what you now need to consume. How do you think you've created that discipline to simply interrupt yourself when like, dude, enough's enough, like, no more consumption, now let's shift into creation? How have you built that awareness, do you think, over the years?
I think that it's one of those that you keep building, right? I wouldn't say that I built it, that's it, done, because I still caught myself. And I think the catching yourself doing things and being more aware and being, present. And this quarter, our keyword for my company and for even my family became intentionality, doing anything with intention. So this all comes, I think, I'm sure we're going to talk about, growth versus fixed mindset. Hopefully we will, because I wrote things about that as well. And so I think that the idea here is, for me, is because I have this growth mindset myself, is I've been focusing on a lot of, self-growth, right? And I realized I was a CEO of a 110 people company just before this company. And I took that role because of the title, right? It was my first CEO role. It was a good pay. There was a partnership deal. The partners are still my partners in this business, but I've left that business. It wasn't a business, or it wasn't a thing that I wanted to do, I guess. But it's just that because the role, because the money, I did it. And I had an awful time, I showed up every day, with misery almost, I was like, oh my God, another day, and I have to, I have 110 people. There's always, as you said earlier, there's always a human problem and so on. And I was drowning in this negativity, and I was pushing myself towards this negativity. I just had moved to Turkey. The news in Turkey, if you watch any of the news, my dad watches it, and I was seeing it, and it's just negative. Everything's negative. And I was like, oh my God, like, what's happening? And then I read a book, actually. And my business partner always told me about this book, and I never did. And I never took him seriously until one day. And I guess that is one of those books that, there's a day that comes to you and you read it, even if you own it for a while. It's The Four Agreements. I don't know if you know about this book, The Four Agreements. Yeah, very, very, very simple book. And it said, the Four Agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And when I read that, I was like, oh, okay, like this makes sense. And then I went back to about 5-6 years ago, before COVID even. I had a panic attack at work. It was my first one. Actually, I had my second one a few months ago in Miami, in a beautiful suite in a hotel, and it was ridiculous. Like, how can you have a second one? But it happens for everybody. And I'm vocal about it now. And after the first one, I became vocal about it to help others not, hide it, and be open and kind of, work on it. So the book plus that past experience, I had some meditation, but I had given up on that meditation. I started that meditation again, and I started to journal a lot and so on. And I kind of started to practice this thing. It's like, I'm awake, I'm here. Oh, okay. I look around me and I'm like, oh, I'm awake, I'm here. And by repeating that, then sometimes if I'm not so awake, because let's say TikTok algorithm or whatever, right? Or the YouTube algorithm or the consumption algorithm, let's call them, right? If it starts pulling me, there's going to be a minute or a second there. I'm going to catch myself and I'm going to say, and I'm going to be like, oh, what's happening, Tim? That's not where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
That's not where you want to be. I zoom out and then I'll catch myself and I go, whoop, and I'll zoom out. That second that I zoom out, I'm like, oh shit, I should have not been there, right? So I think that that's how I start catching myself now.
Yeah, the I'm awake, I'm here is it. What I like is you're taking the words that you need to create that level of awareness and ownership for you. It's not really about. I'm sure there's other people that benefit from that level of presence and intentionality, of course. But those words are for you, is what I'm hearing. It's not about necessarily a script or an idea that someone else has given you. So it's more about, for Tim to check back in with Tim, it's like, hey, I'm awake, I'm here. What's going on? Like, what?
Let's go. Let's go
yeah,
time.
Let's go. Let's go. What's going on? Let's go. Whatever it may be. And I think that level of intentionality is such a great way to illustrate the start line, if you will, for what intentionality is. It's like, what good is that intention if you've not brought the level of presence to it that you need to? And so that's really what you're talking to here. Is like, hey, it's one thing to be intentional, but it's another thing to set the tone for the level of presence that I need when I'm committing to that element of intentionality, no matter what it is, whether it's the work that you're doing, the way you're showing up as a husband, as a father, whatever it is. Like, it's just that in itself, I think, is a really key insight for folks listening to help sort of bring you back into reality and just flip that switch. It almost sounds as that's what it does for you, right? Like, flicks a switch of some sort.
Exactly. That's exactly what it does. And I think that that was also because that person, again, that business partner who gave me these books and so on, that I appreciate a lot. He said, and he learned from other books as well, really, really good books. And it was that, pain is in the past and fear is in the future, and the present is beautiful. Right? So when we catch ourselves being scared about, making money or not being able to send our kids to school or things like that, it's always usually in the future, and you're fearing, and because of that, you're going to act a bit weird and you're not going to go towards that beautiful future that you want. And then if it's you're like, oh, it hurts, it's, something hurts, and it's always in the past, and it's like, oh, okay. And then if you say, all right, well, I'm awake, I'm here, and you look around you and you're like, oh shit, it's beautiful, I'm alive. I have my wife, I have my kids, I have a job, I have a company, I'm doing something, and the second you wake yourself up, you control your reality. This, I'm starting to believe in this. Some people will call this like washy whatever, all these kind of things, but since I started to practice this that I'm in control of my reality, I see what I see the positive, I see that I'm awake, I see that I'm present, I see that I'm doing good. you do good. And with those 4 agreements, always do your best, the last one. It doesn't mean every day your best is the same, right? Because one day you might be a little bit ill.
Sure.
You might have the kids' school meeting and you're not going to do, 8, 9 hours or 10 hours of work, whatever you're doing. That happens. You had a bad night, the baby didn't sleep. That happens to all of us. But if you say, okay, I've done my best today, and you kind of pat your own back and you say, well done, Tim, you've really done well today, you feel so much better the next day. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm showing up again for my best. And it just goes on and on and on. And I guess, I was a growth hacker when growth hacking was cool, and I was a growth consultant, and I'm a growth mentor at Growth. I'm a mentor at Growth Mentor. And I now understand, especially talking to you right now here, I think that it all comes back down to that growth mindset, right? That mindset is that being able to switch and being able to learn anything. Okay, I'm not that old. I'm 37. Sometimes my parents, who's getting closer to 65s and so on, and they'll be like, oh, well, we're old now. We can't learn. I'm like, what? Like, you can learn anything, even a 70, 80, 90. It doesn't matter. As long as you want something, you'll achieve it.
Right.
I think that all comes down from this mindset, and you gotta nurture that mindset. You gotta water it, right? It's like a plant, because if not, it just dies down, and you go, what the world has designed for us, negative algorithms, negative news, negative things, so that it just takes you, and then you become a slave to this system. Oh my God, this got philosophical.
Well, we're gonna keep going deeper in a moment, but this bridges us nicely to the curiosity piece of love versus fear. And like you said, like if we live in the pain of the past, if we live in the fear of the future, there's very little we achieve in the present, and it really does extinguish any chance of curiosity. And curiosity right there is how can we submit in many ways this fear that we have towards the future, just sort of say, listen, it's always going to be there, but can we just let it go for a moment? And can we maybe take note and take stock of this pain from the past without letting it influence and guide our future decisions? And can we just live in this present? Like, what is this present moment telling me right now? What is good about it? What opportunities are out there if I can just remain so sure of myself in this moment and so clear of what this situation or what this opportunity is maybe presenting to me, which then leads us to this idea of growth mindset. So we realize quickly that, curiosity and growth mindset, they're not too far from one another, and conceptually at least. But I will say, before we go to growth mindset, on the topic of curiosity, what is daily, like, what is a daily approach to curiosity for you? What does that look like in your world currently?
I mean, in a practical sense, for me, curiosity, I can say it from a digital world, from a email newsletter world, let's say. I love products, I love technology, right? I mean, that's obvious now. Is on product hunt, I get product hunt email, and I'll check like the top 10 products. I'll always open a few that I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I'll very quickly check him, and then I'll delete him or I'll store him, right? And I'll do this every day. Right. And I think that that's my curiosity of making sure I know what's out there and what's coming out. Right. And then, I'll see a podcast or something about, maybe a tip about parenthood, and being a father. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm curious about listening to that and learning that, and then maybe practicing it with my daughter. I learned, what was it, the colors, the 4 colors of the emotions. She's feeling red, she's feeling blue, she's feeling green. That helped us a ton as a family, right? And it was there. A lot of people will see it and be like, oh yeah, let's just pass that. But I was like, oh, what's that, right? I want to learn about that. And I even opened up ChatGPT in the car once on CarPlay, and with my daughter in the back, we're going to school, and we asked ChatGPT, we said, can you explain us these colors, these emotions, how we can use them, and so on. And we had a great conversation. So I think curiosity is exploring anything new you see, and again, not fearing it. And if it doesn't work out for you, you've invested a little bit of time. If it doesn't work out for you, move on. It's very easy. It doesn't have to stay there. And I guess also the curiosity day to day or how it is, it's moving around. It's like I always say, we're not trees. We don't have roots in a place. We don't have to be stuck in a place. If you don't like something, just go and move and do something else. And I, for 25 years of my life, I lived all around the world. And my wife is the second place now she's moving with me. Like, we moved from London to Barcelona. That was her first, and from Barcelona to Bodrum, which is even like more crazy out there or whatever. And it's like, be curious, explore. If you don't like something, just move on. If we don't like it here, we'll move on. Nothing holds us. So I think that every day, that's how I look at things. I'm like, oh, okay, let's go try that. Let's try this new thing. Let's read that book. Let's listen to that podcast. And if I don't like it, I just delete it. So I guess that goes back a little bit to consumption, right? So I am consuming a little bit, right? But I guess I'm consuming intentionally, and I always have. And I'm like, oh, I want to get something out of this. And if I don't get anything out of it, and I'm like, yeah, that's not for me. I can't. It doesn't add anything to my life, as a dad, as a DJ, as a musician, as a sound engineer, as a music producer, or as a founder, as an entrepreneur. If it doesn't add into anything of that, I'm like, next.
Yeah. And again, you're the most latest, and you probably won't be the last iteration of what curiosity means to you. I really like the idea of relocating yourself in order to practice curiosity at its best, as opposed to, because curiosity, I'm sure people could argue with me all day long, like, you can do it from the comfort of your own chair. You can close your eyes and you can just work in pitch black and just have all these ideas and be super curious and innovative and all this kind of stuff. And that's great. But there's something about taking this notion of exploration and being quite literal with it, like really getting out into the world, putting yourself in positions to discover. Like, that's what I heard there. It's like you want the curiosity to have an intentionality to it, to where you actually get a return, you get a result for the curiosity that you've put in. And I think this is where we can have a bit of back and forth now around the growth mindset component, because growth mindset is one of these. There's no doubt so much of the work that I do as an executive coach is built in the growth versus the fixed mindset. However, my biggest pushback a lot of the time with growth mindset is it brings us to open-mindedness without necessarily insinuating action. It brings us to like a willingness to consider without the follow-through. And so much of what you're alluding to with the curiosity piece, it's like, no. Like, put yourself in situations to where you are enlightened, where you come up with an element of discovery, so that curiosity is feeding some sort of return for that investment that you made on the front end. And I'm just curious, Tim, like, do you see it that way, the way I kind of do? How do you maybe see it differently? I'm just curious.
No, I'm curious that you're curious. Well, absolutely. I think that's exactly what it is. It's at the end of the day, you should not have expectations of things, right? Because if you come out with an expectation, you might be disappointed or things like that. But I think in a kind of big picture, you gotta have, you want to get something out of this, right? You want to get something out of this, and I think that. My product hunt kind of newsletter, reading and checking all of that. I have a custom podcast every morning for myself from my company, and the guys that we work with, we all put it together for ourselves. I started, and then we put it for ourselves. It's, it's about 15, 20 different newsletters that we really love, and it becomes a voice podcast that is only 5 minutes, custom to us, delivered to our Slack at 9 a.m. So we don't have to go through that noise on everything. And why do we do that? Because we have an intention of, we want to get the latest about AI, right? The other one is, I want to know the latest about products. When I look at a parenting podcast or so on, is like, I want to become a better father. When I go swimming throughout the whole summer, is every day is like, because I know that under the water I'm gonna meditate somehow. When I do breaststrokes and I'm under the water, it's very peaceful. So I do things, of course, with intention, but also because I know it brings something to me, right? And this is why I will invest my time. So I think what you said is for sure that as well. It's like, it's, I guess in the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, since we're slowly going towards there, is the fixed mindset is really, I see it as like, yeah, whatever. It's like, okay, just I'm gonna hear it. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do it. It's just I have to do it, right? And the growth mindset was like, oh, okay, yeah, are we gonna do that? Let's do it. Let's get something out of it, even if it's completely something new and it's something that is really not your comfort zone or whatsoever, right? And it's like, oh, okay, let me do that because I'm sure there was something I'm gonna learn from it, right? So the second you look, and I guess that's why I think curiosity and growth mindset kind of ties in together, is I think that the growth is in the uncertainty. The growth is where you're the most uncomfortable, right? And I think that we got to push ourselves to really do that. I think the growth mindset and the fixed mindset was something I of course read a while ago, and that I had, but now what I'm seeing, especially in this AI era, is what's going to differentiate humans, is going to be the mindset. If they have a growth mindset, they're going to do really well, and if they have a fixed mindset, I can't guarantee that they're going to do well, because of this perma change, going back to that, is if you just want to do the minimum and be like, yeah, okay, I'm whatever, I can't understand that, I can't do that, I don't want to learn that, I don't want to do this, then you're going to be messed up, because yes, that's the 100 million that are going to lose their job by 2030 are fixed mindset people. Growth mindset people are not going to lose their jobs, let's be honest.
Yeah. And when you have a podcast called Growth Ready, most of your audience, if not all of it, is growth minded. So that's
hopefully, yeah, hopefully,
yeah. You'd like to think so. It'd be weird. It'd be really weird if they weren't. But this idea of what you're doing as a growth mentor, I'm really fascinated by, because part of me wants to just learn more about what that typical conversation looks like. You alluded to some stuff there, like the uncertainty, the uncomfortable. There's a lot of these terms of discomfort and lack of familiarity and all this kind of thing that when we lean into that is when growth is most likely. And so how much of those conversations in that role of a mentor are you having based around exactly that? Because I think that's where most of our listeners are probably most curious, if anything, most open-minded, is like they want to know, okay, Tim, like you're alluding to it, like the discomfort, the uncertainty, all this kind of thing. I wake up and do that every minute of the day or whatever it is. I'm operating like that. But how you may be helping folks navigate through those sort of moments and feelings that they deal with.
Yeah, I think in the it's a lot of founders, right? So it's like it's simple things actually. When you think about it, is first of all, as humans, we take a lot of decisions, and we're not intentional about the decisions, right? So decision making, having a decision journal, you made a decision. Why did you do that decision? How did you make that decision? And then can you revisit that in a year? Oh, that decision I made was terrible. Why was it terrible? And you'll learn, you'll get better at decisions. You'll be much more intentional about decision making. If there is a question that you don't know, do you just say, oh, okay, I don't know, as a founder? Or do you go and obsess about it and speak to a bunch of people? Do you get out of your comfort zone? And even if you're introvert or extrovert, do you go and seek for help, right? Of course, in Growth Mentor, it's a bit easier because they do seek for help and they come in and they talk to me about, hey, but usually it's very technical how they come, and they're like, hey, I know you had 14 years of experience in marketing. I'm going to use this marketing automation platform. Can you give me this tip? I don't know how to do this. And then I usually take that conversation completely in a separate place. And I'm like, oh, do you believe that's, what are you going to build in that market? Why are you doing that? And they're like, oh yeah, because, I got to do 5 sequences and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, do you? And oh, maybe I don't, and maybe they're like, oh yeah, maybe it's not an email. Maybe it's a community I'm going to build. Maybe it's that. And things change completely. I think that to everyone listening is that we come in a place and we sometimes ask questions, but do we ask the right questions is the question. And also sometimes I feel, and I think that comes from my own past that I can understand now. Sometimes we ask the questions that we know the answer, and we're looking for that exact answer. Right? We
Right.
want somebody to say, "Oh yeah, you've done a great choice with that," and so on. And then if somebody doesn't tell you that, and a growth mentor comes in and kind of lets you question yourself, and then you're unsure when you leave, it's not that he didn't help you. There's a very big chance that the next morning you're gonna wake up and you'll be like, "Oh, thanks," But maybe after the conversation, you're like, "Yeah, that wasn't, he didn't tell me every answer I was looking for."
Right.
But suddenly I turned back that question to yourself, and then you're gonna the next morning, you're gonna find the answer yourself. And also, I think when we ask questions, we're looking for very quick answers. And if it's not a very like urgent decision or urgent thing to answer, give it some time. Before sleeping, ask that question to yourself before sleeping, and give yourself a goal for the sleep, and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna solve this while I'm sleeping. And it's like, it sounds again like crazy talk, but you wake up, you're like, oh wow, what just happened, right? Because I do believe that something is happening in that sleep, that we can solve a lot of our problems, challenges, and things while we're actually sleeping.
Okay, well that I'm practicing that one tonight. I'm taking that one and I'm putting it to practice immediately. I'm going to write a question down, and I'm like, all right, I want an answer to this question in about 6.5, 7 hours. I'm going to see what my subconscious does, see what it can do when left to its own devices, and then just look at that question again the next morning and see what happens. I love that. But the way you initially responded there around the importance of the frequency, of decision making. Like I speak a lot to audiences around this notion of choices and how many choices that we actually have to make. And it's one of my funnest exercises to do. Is like, okay, reflect on the last 24 hours. I'm going to give you 2 minutes and write as many choices down as you can that you've made in the last 24 hours. And some people get 25, 30, 35, and it's like, cool. And, I've obviously cheated because I've come in prepared, and I have a list of like 250. And I'm like, all we're doing is making choices all day long. Yeah. Every time we move, we made a choice to move. This whole thing called life is a never-ending choice. And so something like a decision journal for a high performer, which we're very much targeting with this show, I think is an absolute just essential part of our process. It's one thing to make decisions, but it's another thing to document them consistently enough, at least the really big ones, where we can come back and say, okay, how did that decision turn out? Because I don't think we do that very well. I don't think we take the time to stop, reflect, and say, okay, I made a big decision, but sometimes we either enjoy the results of that decision and be like, yay me, and we just carry on, or we brush off the disappointment and then we just move on to the next decision. And 6 months later, we could be making the exact same decision all over again, but because we didn't take the time to document it, we don't even know that we're running into that, black hole again that we've already climbed out of, So I think that's fascinating, and I'm even just curious now towards you of just when you say decision making journal, what do you think qualifies as I'm already alluding to it, but what do you think qualifies as the kind of decisions that we need to be documenting seasonally within our lives?
Yeah, just before that, what I'd like to add is that, as growth people and so on in, let's say, in growth in a business, right? What was it? Is experimentation, right? Trying things and testing things. And then we had this data-driven, which I had an article a long time ago, even I think an interview, that I prefer to be data informed versus data-driven. Like, let the data show you things, but you're still, gut feeling is going to take decision, and don't just be data driven, because if the data tells you this, doesn't mean that it's that. Sometimes be data informed. So I think the decision journal is also almost like your experimentation journal, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I've decided to fire that person, right? Why? And then 3 months later, was it the right decision? Why? 6 months or a year later, was it the right decision? And then, as you said, the next time that you have some type of same kind of acting person, or you're facing the same problems in your new company or in that new person, if you had that decision journaled, you might be like, oh, okay, well, I see similar traits and I'm feeling the same. And last time I did something great and it helped me a ton. Or last time I didn't do something great because that person actually was great at, doing this, but they were not great at that. And they needed more coaching or they needed more support in their role, right? So suddenly you might keep your high performance because you learned how to identify a high performer, even if, they don't have the same traits each time, right? So I think that also this goes back when you say decision journal. For me, a decision journal is right now the last decision that potentially I put out there in my decision journal was, a new pricing. Right, in my business, a new pricing. Oh well, I'm going to test this pricing. I'm going to push it, and I've doubled my pricing. And I'm like, okay, why are you doubling your pricing, Tim? Well, because there's a lot of demand. I can't scale myself, right? And I'm delivering the training program for my company. I'm doubling the pricing because I know the return on investment is huge. I see the value. We have enough testimonials. We have enough case studies, and I did it. I don't look back since I've doubled the pricing. We have new clients, and it's like, well, okay, well, that's a great thing, right? And then you might decide, okay, well, we were going to move to Portugal, and we didn't move to Portugal. We stayed here. And then I said to myself, all right, well, we're not moving to Portugal. There was a great school there. I think that it was even a better school potentially. But then I was like, okay, but there is more nature here. There is, grandparents are here. This and that's for my kid. And then I look like that since that decision, I think that was March this year, and I look at it and I look at my daughter's happiness. And I'm like, oh wow, she's very happy. Then I go back. I say, okay, well, she's very happy. Luckily, we didn't move there too early, right? And then in 2 years, we're gonna have the same chat with my wife because she's going to be 6 and then proper school starts and then here there isn't. And I'm going to be like, okay, are we moving to Portugal? And then I'm going to look at why I decided back then not to do it. And potentially there's going to be a big chance I'm going to, oh, yeah, still beautiful nature. Still grandparents are here. Still that. Still she's super happy. So yeah, we don't have to, right? So again, and also I think that decisions, we take so many of them. I think it's up to you. What do you want to put in that journal? Anything that makes you feel like, I want to remember this moment. I want to remember this, how I felt in this moment and why did I took this route or that route, right? And you said that life is just decisions all the time, right? So the second you feel like you're like, oh, I'm going to do something, let me write that down. Right. Yeah. And potentially when you're writing it down, what happens as well is that you're like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. And then you do pros, cons, you do how you're feeling, and maybe you're grumpy that day. Maybe you didn't sleep well. And what happens? You say, oh, okay, I'm going to leave this decision to tomorrow. Right. And tomorrow you're going to have a better decision. You're going to come back to that. You're like, well, I'm glad that I didn't decide that because I wasn't feeling very positive or, I was very sleepy. I was grumpy. And now I'm like, I'm going to take this decision. And then maybe it's a wrong decision again. It doesn't matter. But in 6 months, you're going to be like, oh, shit, maybe I was right. So I think that your journal is your journal. And luckily now, like the first time I heard this concept was, I think, in COVID time, just as COVID hit. And I was very into, I think like the COVID time, the first like month or 2 months of COVID in Barcelona was quite heavy. That's where I think my growth went even more like boom, like I was like studying, I was learning new things, I was coding, I was like, oh my God, I'm learning. Notion just came out, I was learning that. There were so many courses out there. We're so bored, like instead of getting depressed, right? It was like, what do I do? So I think there I learned in this course, this decision journal thing. And back then there was not really Gen AI, there was no ChatGPT, there was not really voice to text properly or things like that. So it was literally you had to write it down or you have to type it. But now it's just very easy. I have a shortcut even on here, which is voice notes. I just say, hey, so yeah, I'm feeling like this. This is the decision I'm going to make. I'm quite sure about it, or I'm unsure. I don't know. And you just note it down. You come back to your desk or the next morning. It's already summarized for you and it knows. And you can even have a template in these apps, which is decision journal, right? And then if it knows it's a decision, it automatically uses that template. So we have so many new ways to actually get better at decision making, and hopefully it inspires a few people listening right now and like using technology to also help them document, but also help them make better decisions in the long run.
Experimentation for me, what I think is fascinating here, Tim, is that you're giving us the permission to give ourselves some grace around this idea of experimenting. So when we say it's an experiment as I make this decision, on the back end, we're actually encouraging the curiosity. You say whatever the result is, you're encouraging further curiosity. It's a cycle. And like that cycle can encourage growth, no matter whether it's, disappointment number 1 or disappointment number 71. Like, we're going to continue to practice this in a way to where hopefully we just arrive at more and more curiosity to keep us going. And so I appreciate that reframe of decision-making around, can we look at it more as experimentation in order to encourage this growth mindset, to encourage this curiosity, encourage this intentionality, to bring everything that you've alluded to us today, that you brought to us today, just to bring it into more of a system and a cycle that we can be practicing. But go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to add something to that, just because, and as we speak, I'm loving this conversation. Thank you, because I'm even learning a lot from it and reflecting about growth, experimentation, decisions. And it's the same when we were experimenting, and it's been years. I'm not in marketing anymore because I was COO, then CEO, and so on. And very growth specific growth. I mean, as a CEO and founder, I do growth every day, anyways. But I don't have the growth title anymore. Growth consultant, growth marketer, growth that. But what was it? Is that we experiment. And the cycle, you said it, right? As we experiment, we learn to experiment. And we put data in, we learn we've done good or bad and so on. And then we get better at experimentation because we start experimenting in the right things, and we know how to retrospective about our experiments, right? And understand if they were good experiments or not and so on. And I think that decisions should be the same because we don't practice decision making. We just make decisions. We just make them automatically. We don't think about them, right? But if we start practicing decision making, decision journal, understanding, sleeping on it the next day, and so on, we are going to get better at decisions, right? Because we're going to do retrospectives with our journal. We're going to learn. We're going to practice, and it's a muscle, right? And there are a lot of people. Yes, they do a lot of physical exercise, like physical work, and they don't build that much muscle. But when they when you work out in the gym, if you think about that muscle that you are working out, that muscle also works out better, right? Or whatever. Like, I'm not very gym buff, obviously, as you can understand from my talk about that. But I've heard that you got to focus on the abs when you're doing abs, right? And it makes sense. So because you're doing intentionality, you're doing it with intention, and you're focusing on it. So I think that let's be much more mindful about our decisions. Let's learn from them so that we get better at decision making. And I think that that's kind of the message that I wanted to give here, not just to the listeners, but to myself as well.
Yeah, man. Well, I've thought many times over on this show is like, we should just call this note to self, because most people that come on, it's like by the time we're done, you reflect on what you've said and you're like, this is a pretty good note for myself right now. Like I needed to hear myself say this today. So I'm glad that you definitely benefited from it, but I know everybody else did too. So I appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. But Tim, before I let you go, firstly, feel free to let us know how we can learn more about you, but specifically, I want to know a little bit more about AI Operator as well, and just give you that chance, because you're still a fairly young company, and any opportunity I know is a great opportunity just to speak to, what it is you guys do and what it is you represent. So I'd love just to learn a little bit more about you and the company, and maybe how we can reach out to you here in closing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. It was a great conversation. And yeah, at AI Operator, we're very newish kind of companies. Well, yeah, it's about a year and a month, 13 months or so. And I think now, after this conversation, I'm realizing it was built really on the growth mindset, and it was built on what I exactly wanted to do, because I show up every morning now with just love for my job and for because it's not even a job anymore. It's I bring, because I help people. We spoke about love, not fear, for the ones who can see. I have this thing called love, not fear. And as I help people with AI Operator love their job every day, because if they don't like reporting, preparing a presentation, and so on, is with AI Operator, we have a corporate AI training program for companies, and we train people on a 12-week AI first mindset training program. And what I do mostly, it's the AI show. It's getting people curious, excited, loving this AI thing. And when people see me do their process and so on, and how I do presentations in 15 minutes, instead of 2-3 hours of Sam doing that, right? They're like, oh, wow. That's so cool. I can do that myself. And they get curious and they get excited, and I push them towards that new world, right? So that's what AI Operator does. We do 50 to 250 people companies are sweet spots, but we do 550 people companies as well. We've trained Google on their own platform, on Gemini, some of their Google teams. So what we do is we do training. I get people excited about this technology. I get them excited about what they can do with it today, and not a future maybe day. No, it's like, how can you work with ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude today? How can you remove some of that boring work and you can focus on what you love, right? And I see that the one that has the growth mindset, they become so good very quickly. The ones that are on fixed mindset, I've never thought that you could change somebody from fixed mindset to growth mindset. But I had a couple of people that were like, I thought maybe they were in a fixed mindset, or, they were stuck maybe in like thinking that they were a fixed mindset, but actually they had a growth mindset, but they didn't know because they never was shown something exciting. Right. And I got them on the dark side, which is the AI side. So that's what we do at AI Operator. We just make sure that that you're ready for this new AI era, and that your company has a custom program for their processes, their systems, your industry, what you do, and just get you excited about it. Because if I get you excited about it, you show up that day with love, and then you use that tool, and suddenly in no time, we have a 12-week program, but in week 3 or 4, the return on investment is already there. People go, oh my God, this changed. They go, oh my God, this just changed how I do things, right? So that's what we do. I mean, that's not how I used to sell it at all, but because you got me into this in this incredible conversation, that's what we do. I just get people excited, curious, and learn about AI and what they can do today.
I love it, and I'm glad that we can help you reframe your entire offering through one conversation. I'll invoice you that later.
Yeah, no worries.
But no, honestly, Tim, in all seriousness, this has been great, and your passion for growth, your passion for shifting and reframing people's minds towards their own growth, whether it be simply just through the way in which they show up and see themselves in the mirror every day, or on a much more tech savvy perspective as well through the work you're doing there with AI Operator. Just appreciative of the time, appreciative of all the energy, especially considering it's 10:30 at night where you are and your energy is off the charts. So I appreciate that level of engagement.
End of a Monday. This is the end of a Monday. Imagine a Monday morning.
Imagine this was Tuesday or Wednesday. Goodness grief. Anyway, Tim, pleasure, brother. Look forward to keeping in touch, and just best of luck with everything, man.
Same here, Steve. Thank you so much for having me.
And my thanks again to Tim for joining us on the show today. And I really want to just re-emphasize one last time where we finished the episode there, around this notion of decision making and maybe reframing it and seeing it more as experimentation. Whenever you listen to this episode is somewhat irrelevant, but we're just going to stick with this whole new year, new me kind of thing that typically catches on around the start of a new year, and just tell you, like, what if you looked at 2026 as the grand experimentation, right? What if you just said, hey, this year, the theme, the focus, the mantra, if you will, that I'm going to take to what I do is that of experimentation. How might that just free you a little bit? How might that get you looking at the approach you take a little differently? A decision may not quite seem as enormous sometimes as you maybe make it out to be if you just look at the entire situation as an experiment in itself. So with that being said, what can you experiment with this year? What areas in your professional life, your personal life, your spiritual life, your anything life, what areas within that can you simply say, hey, listen, I know there's this big decision to make about X, but if I reframe that decision as an experiment, what do I want to experiment when it comes to this particular topic? What do I want to learn? What am I curious about? I think you're going to notice quite quickly your entire energy and perspective will shift just by looking at this potentially big decision now as the big experiment. And so I want to challenge everybody to do that as you start out this year. Is there a big decision that you're trying to make right now that, were you to reframe it as an experiment, could change the entire perspective, approach, and attitude that you have towards actually making the decision? So with all that being said, my thanks again to Tim for joining us. And as always, my thanks to you for taking the time to listen to us. As always, we are really just proud of where this show is. We've turned 300 episodes old now at this point. And so whether this is episode 301, 302, I'm not exactly keeping count once we pass the 300 until we get closer to the 400 mark, of course. But all I want to say is sometimes I feel compelled to say thank you, and truly thank you for taking the time to listen. So again, thank you, truly thank you for taking the time to listen to us. And don't keep it to yourself. Don't be selfish about this, folks. Take the time to share it with people within your world so that they can benefit from this fantastic insight as well. And of course, feel free to leave us a rating and a review. It goes a long way to continuing to grow the show. Best of luck with anything and everything going on in your world at the moment. I look forward to doing this again with you all very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.